is the Celebrity Afterlife Report podcast.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Celebrity Afterlife Report, the only show on the internet that gives you the up-to-the-minute gossip about all your favorite deceased celebs. I think this will be a particularly good show, as there were some major arrivals in the next world this past week. I have 3 to tell you about, and all of them got involved in interesting projects almost immediately upon their welcomes to their new existences. And with that titillating teaser out of the way, let's get right to the details. Certainly the biggest star to arrive in the afterlife in the past few weeks was Prince. As you would expect, the purple one was greeted by a huge crowd that seemed ecstatic to see him. As is standard for a celebrity arrival, unofficial greeter to the stars James Brown was on hand to welcome Prince to the next world. What was unusual, however, was that James brought his current band along with him for the welcoming ceremony. Once Prince got his bearings and seemed to realize where he was, James and the band launched into a high-energy rendition of Prince's "I Would Die For You." My sources tell me that Prince seemed very moved by the tribute and let himself be talked into performing with the band partway into the song. I am informed that the crowd went wild and began to sing along. After the number was over, Brown announced that there was a special person he wanted to bring up on stage. To the surprise of the many thousands in attendance, the guest star was none other than David Bowie, who only recently transitioned to the next world himself. Bowie made a speech saying that Prince was a great artist and a welcome addition to the afterlife. He then announced that he was planning on having another concert at iVironment in the near future. Regular listeners know that David was electrocuted in mid-song during his recent iVironment show, and that artist Jackson Pollock is suspected to have caused the injury. The crowd went wild at the announcement of the upcoming show, but Bowie wasn't finished with his surprises. He invited Prince to perform at the show with him. I'm told that Prince seemed overwhelmed by the invite, but after a few seconds he accepted and actually started crying. My sources tell me that the Next World press is going insane with coverage of what some are calling the greatest show in anyone's memory. Now, no date has been announced for the show yet, but I will, of course, be keeping a close eye on this story as it develops. For reasons no one seems to know or understand, people do not always arrive in the afterlife in the order that they departed the earthly plane. Although Joanie Laurer, who wrestled under the name Chyna, left our existence the day before Prince, her arrival in the next world came shortly after the massive greeting Prince received. Now, some of the crowd that had gathered for Prince's arrival was still on hand, along with a few thousand wrestling fans who were there to greet Laurer. Like everyone in the afterlife, she looks as she did at her adult best, so she was every bit the toned Amazon she was when she held the women's championship in the then WWF. Now, speaking of that organization, I'm told that Vince McMahon Sr., father of the chairman of what is now World Wrestling Entertainment, was on hand and introduced himself to Chyna. The two had never met before, as Vince Sr. transitioned prior to Laura's involvement in his son's company. The elder McMahon immediately extended an offer for Joanie to join his Shakespearean theater company. Now, that is a high honor indeed, since, as longtime listeners know, while there have been and still are many wrestlers employed by the company which specializes in the work of the bard, there has never been a woman in the cast before. Like Prince, Laura teared up. McMahon comforted her and invited her to visit the larger-than-the-original copy of Shakespeare's Globe Theater that his troupe performs in. Joanie said she would be honored, and the two left together, presumably to head on over there. The third high-profile celebrity to arrive in the next world in the past few days was Doris Roberts. The veteran actress appeared on many shows over the years, including a starring turn as the nagging mother on Everybody Loves Raymond. After her brief arrival ceremony was over, she was approached by another TV sitcom veteran, Don Knotts. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you will remember that since arriving in the afterlife, Knotts has gone on a health kick and is now very buff. A far cry from the scrawny Barney Fife character he played on the Andy Griffith Show. His new physique, in fact, was why Griffith decided not to star in a revival of his old show. He reluctantly had to tell his former co-star that the way he looks now is totally unsuited for the Barney character. So when Knotts approached Roberts, she didn't recognize him until he introduced himself, according to a source. Now, once that was out of the way, apparently Knotts told her he was working on a new show and he would like her to be on it. Now, Roberts said, understandably, that she'd like to get settled into her new existence, but she will definitely sit down with him to talk about it once that's accomplished. Lastly, a story about people who haven't just arrived in the next world. Former U.S. President Richard Nixon, who plays the boyfriend of Whitney Houston's daughter Bobby Christina on their reality show The Crazy Life of Dick and Bobby, is apparently not a hit with the audience. The Afterlife celebrity press is reporting that a recent poll of viewers of the show said that a large majority of them actively disliked Nixon, with many saying that they feel he is using Bobby Christina and doesn't really love him, as he has claimed several times on the show. Now, despite the negativity on the part of the audience, the producers of the show that say that they have, quote, no plans at the moment for making changes in the cast or direction of the show, unquote. This comes on the heels of reports in the Next World tabloids that Bobby Christina says she's in love with Tricky Dick and hopes he will propose to her soon. Okay, that kicks it in the head for this edition of the report. Please come back next week when I'll have more up-to-the-minute gossip about all your favorite deceased celebs. We are approaching our 100th episode soon, and I would consider it a personal favor if you tell your friends that the report is available for free on iTunes. I'm the Celebrity Medium. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to the Celebrity Afterlife Report podcast. To ask a question about your favorite deceased celebrity, call 818-3-MY-DREAM. 818-3-MY-DREAM. 818-369-3732.